Hello and thanks for joining us for our mid-morning edition of Arirang News. I'm Mark Broom. Let's start by taking a look at the day's headlines. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is in Beijing on an unannounced visit for talks with Chinese leader Xi Jinping. This as preparations ramp up for an expected second summit with U.S. President Donald Trump. Another grim year for job seekers in South Korea. New figures show fewer people found work in 2018 than any other year since the height of the global financial crisis. Plus, President Trump lauds progress made at crunch U.S. China trade talks in Beijing. Will they be enough to turn their temporary trade war ceasefire into a permanent reduction of trade tensions? North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is still in Beijing this morning after accepting an invitation to travel there from Chinese President Xi Jinping. The leaders held their fourth summit in less than a year on Tuesday, as speculation is rife that this could be the precursor for a second meeting between Kim and U.S. President Donald Trump. Lee Seung-jae starts us off.
The special train carrying North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and his wife, Lee Sol-ju, pulled into a lockdown Beijing train station on Tuesday morning. There, Kim and his entourage headed straight to the Dayutai State Guest House in the Chinese capital for his fourth summit with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Citing a source, Seoul-based Yonhap news agency reports the two leaders talked for about an hour. They are said to have discussed efforts to coordinate strategies ahead of Kim's possible second summit with U.S. President Donald Trump. Yonhap added the two leaders may have also discussed ways to strengthen their bilateral ties. After the summit, Kim and his wife attended a dinner hosted by the Chinese leader and the First Lady at the Great Hall of the People in Beijing. The North state-run Korean Central News Agency said the North Korean leader was accompanied by party, government, and military officials, including Kim Yong-chul, a key nuclear negotiator with the U.S., and Lee Yong-ho and No Kwang-chul, the regime's foreign and defense ministers. The KCNA also revealed footage of Kim Ya-jung, Kim Jong-un's sister, who was seen among the group leaving for China. Experts say Kim Jong-un's trip to China may be intended to demonstrate to the world that North Korea-China relations remain strong and could also reflect the North's will to project the image of a normal state. Experts add Kim's trip to Beijing could be followed by a visit to Seoul for a fourth summit with South Korean President Moon Jae-in or a second summit with President Trump as early as February. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Now, as a follow-up to that report, South Korea's top office has weighed in on the North Korean leader's trip to China, expressing hopes the visit will contribute to the denuclearization of the peninsula and hopefully lead to the establishment of lasting peace.
We hope the exchanges between the two Koreas, between Pyongyang and Beijing, and between Pyongyang and Washington will create a virtuous circle so that progress in each of these exchanges will lead to progress in the others. In particular, we hope that Chairman Kim Jong-un's fourth visit to China will serve as a stepping stone to a second North Korea-U.S. summit.
The spokesperson added Seoul has been in close contact with North Korea and China regarding Kim's visit, but did not specify exactly when the South Korean government was notified of the trip. As to whether the two Koreas are currently pursuing any exchanges of special envoys or high-level talks, the official said currently there are no such plans. With Kim Jong-un's conciliatory New Year's speech and President Trump's comments about the possible venue for their second summit, there are growing expectations now. The blockbuster diplomatic event will happen soon. The North Korean leader's visit to Beijing, his fourth in the space of just a year, is further fueling such speculation. Our EG1 gets an expert's take on the matter.
China is often seen as North Korea's big brother, and the regime's leader Kim Jong-un has been visiting Beijing at crucial times. Kim's three visits with Chinese President Xi Jinping last year came once before his first summit with South Korean President Moon Jae-in, once before his June summit in Singapore with U.S. President Donald Trump, and once right after that Singapore summit. Thus, watchers are saying that the second Pyongyang-Washington summit, expected to be held in January or February, could really be imminent. A senior South Korean official at the foreign ministry told reporters on Tuesday that it is natural to think like this if comparing the visit to previous cases. The reason for the visit? Park Won-gun, Dean of International Affairs at Handong Global University, says Kim Jong-un may have visited China to discuss his strategy for negotiations with the U.S. and possibly get reassurances of Beijing support should the talks not go well. At the same time, the experts said the visit could be a means to pressure the U.S.
Kim, in his New Year's speech last week, said that the North may come up with new measures if the U.S. does not take corresponding measures. These new measures were not elaborated, but it could mean the North will side with China and engage in economic cooperation, regardless of its talks with Washington.
While Kim's visit may put some symbolic pressure on the U.S., Park does not think it'll have a negative impact on Pyongyang's talks with Washington.
Beijing's advice this time will be very much different from the advice before the first summit last year, where China allegedly pushed North Korea for a harder stance on its talks with the U.S. So whenever talks didn't go well, President Trump blamed China for Kim's change in attitude. So with the current hard-earned truce in their trade war with Washington, Beijing is not likely to risk it. I think it will in fact urge North Korea to take a bolder denuclearization step.
The experts said the North's likely cards it could put on the table are inspections and verifications of the dismantlement of the Punggye-ri nuclear test site and the Dongchangri missile test site. But Park added that more signs, including high-level or working-level talks, will be needed to confidently say that a Kim-Trump summit is imminent. He said as much as the Singapore joint declaration was not deemed a success in the U.S., the Trump administration will want solid denuclearization measures promised before holding the summit. 이지원, Arirang News.
Now, despite the South Korean government's efforts to boost the job market, the latest employment report shows the overall situation remains grim. According to Statistics Korea on Wednesday, the number of newly employed people in 2018 increased by 97,000 compared to the previous year. Those are the lowest figures since 2009 in the aftermath of the global financial crisis. Statistics Korea attributed the lower numbers to slower population growth and the sluggish manufacturing and auto industries. The overall unemployment rate for 2018 was 3.8%. That's the highest in almost 20 years. The World Bank is downgrading its 2019 outlook for the global economy. It's blaming elevated trade tensions, weakening manufacturing activity, and growing financial stress in emerging markets. According to its Global Economic Prospects report, the World Bank forecasts global growth to slow to 2.9% in 2019, down from its previous 3% forecast in June. If the forecast proves to be true, 2019 would be the second straight year of global growth at 3% or below. Now, South Korea's shipbuilders recaptured the #1 spot in shipbuilding orders in 2018, topping the list for the first time in 7 years. According to data compiled by Clarkson Research Institute, a global research firm, South Korea's shipbuilders clinched new orders totaling more than 12.6 million compensated gross tons, accounting for nearly 45% of all global orders. The data shows an increase in orders for LNG carriers played a major role in helping South Korea leapfrog China last year. U.S. President Donald Trump says the ongoing trade talks with China are going very well, but details of the discussions remain far and few between, at least right now. For more on this and other news from around the world, let's turn to our Arirang. Arirang, from what little we know, are we seeing any outward progress?
Well, Mark, it's hard to tell at the moment. As you said, those involved in the trade talks have kept details very close to their chests. The two-day talks were scheduled to end Tuesday, but reports suggest the meetings will continue beyond that. Officials are refusing to give reasons for the extension. President Trump continues to be optimistic, however, tweeting the talks are going very well. China's foreign ministry also made a similar assessment, but it again rejected Trump's claim that Beijing is engaging in trade talks due to what he described as China's slumping economy.
As for whether the Chinese economy is good or not, like I said just now, China's development has enough resilience and huge potential, and we are fully confident that the fundamentals of the Chinese economy will remain sound for a long term.
The vice ministerial level meeting was briefly attended by Liu He, Chinese President Xi Jinping's chief economic advisor, and that signals a possible sense of urgency from Beijing. Liu led a previous round of talks in Washington last year that ended in failure. He is expected to meet Chief U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer later this month. London's Heathrow Airport suspended all departures on Tuesday due to reported drone sightings. It came just weeks after a similar debacle left thousands of travellers stranded at Gatwick Airport, London's second busiest airport. Departures from Britain's busiest airport, meanwhile, were grounded for about an hour before being given the all-clear. Inbound flights were not affected. Heathrow officials apologised for the delays, adding they are working with local police to investigate the incident. Researchers have found that U.S. carbon dioxide emissions rose almost 3.5% last year after 3 years of decline. According to a report by research firm Rhodium Group, the figure also marks the largest increase since 2010, when the economy was bouncing back from the global financial crisis. Although a record amount of coal-fired power plants were shut last year, the uptick came from increased emissions from the energy and transport sectors. Environmental experts suggest the world's second largest greenhouse gas emitter will not see figures drop in the future, especially with President Trump rolling back on existing environmental protections.
Thank you as always to Arirang for the world news there. Now, a group of South Korean plaintiffs are pushing to seize the Korea-based assets of a Japanese steelmaker over Tokyo's policy of forcing Koreans to labour for little to no pay during its brutal colonial rule of the Korean peninsula. In the latest development in a situation that's driving even more of a diplomatic wedge between Seoul and Tokyo, a South Korean court said on Tuesday that it is proceeding with legal measures to help the plaintiffs. Kim Hyo-sun reports.
A local court has approved the seizure of the Korea-based assets of Japanese steelmaker Nippon Steel and Sumitomo Metal Corporation as requested by the South Korean victims of Tokyo's wartime forced labor. On December 31st, the victims' attorneys applied to the Daegu District Court for the seizure of over 81,000 shares held by the company in PNR, its Korea-based joint venture with Korea's largest steelmaker, POSCO. The Japanese steelmaker is estimated to hold around 2.34 million shares of PNR, worth around $10 million. The move comes as the firm refused to abide by the South Korean top court's order to compensate the victims of Japan's forced labor. In October last year, the Supreme Court ordered the Japanese company to pay nearly $90,000 in compensation to each of the 4 victims. According to Japanese broadcaster NHK, Nippon Steel and Sumitomo Metal plans to consult with the Japanese government over Tuesday's verdict. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
Surviving victims of Japan's wartime sexual slavery, civic groups and citizens have gathered in front of the Japanese embassy in Seoul almost every single Wednesday since 1992. And today marks the 27th anniversary of the first Wednesday demonstration. And the victims and participants are still, to this day, demanding an official and genuine apology from Japan. They say the 2015 agreement between Seoul and Tokyo, which settled the comfort women issue, is invalid as it did not take into account the victims' views. The survivors also used to attend the weekly gathering until late last year, but with an average age of 91, their health has prevented them from going. 8 of the victims passed away last year alone, and only 25 remain. The South Korean government has released a video with subtitles in several different languages now to refute Japan's claims that one of its planes was locked on to by a South Korean warship's targeting radar. The clip, that's already been released by the Defense Ministry in Korean and English, clarifies Seoul's position that its Navy did not intend to threaten the Japanese patrol aircraft and didn't use radar on it. The video also urges Tokyo to stop politicizing the issue. According to a military source, the two countries have agreed on the need to hold consultations and are currently setting up working-level talks on the issue. Japan's defense ministry reportedly plans to release its radar frequencies, and that's something Tokyo had previously said were confidential. It's a new year and we have some fresh faces at South Korea's presidential office. President Moon Jae-in has replaced a handful of his top aides amid a controversy over illegal surveillance of civilians. Our correspondent at the presidential office, Shin Se-min, has this report.
A partial reshuffle at the top office. President Moon Jae-in introduced new members to the presidential office with the hope of achieving his administration's goals as he enters the second half of his term. South Korea's ambassador to China, Do Young-min, becomes the presidential chief of staff, the second highest-ranking official at the top office after the president. A former 3-term lawmaker, Do is a close associate of the president and oversaw the president's election campaign headquarters in 2017. For the president's top secretary for political affairs, Kang Gi-jung, also a former 3-term lawmaker who served in parliament when Do was there. And taking the job of senior secretary for public relations is Yoon Do-han, a veteran reporter with more than 3 decades of experience at local broadcaster NBC, having been a correspondent in Los Angeles and an editorialist. The newly named presidential aides, who don't need confirmation hearings, will start work Wednesday. The new presidential staff will give the president a sturdier support base, since the newly appointed chief of staff and political secretary are known to be close to the president. It's part of the president's plan to achieve tangible outcomes from his policy agenda by tightening the grip of his crew on state affairs. It's also seen as a move aimed at revitalizing momentum for an administration with approval ratings at their lowest level yet. The administration is also dealing with accusations that it illegally spied on civilians and has seen economic numbers falter, both slowing down the president's legislative agenda. Through the minor yet high-profile shakeup at the top office, the presidential office is hoping to get some traction as it nears the start of the 3rd year. And there's more to come. The presidential office is expected to go ahead with a cabinet reshuffle in the weeks to come to reform the face of the administration. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Now let's turn our attention to the 2019 Asian Cup taking place in the UAE. No game for South Korea on Tuesday, but plenty of other action to grab the attention of fans here in Korea. That's because Vietnam, led by their now famous South Korean head coach Park Hang-seo, they lost 3-2 to Iraq. They squandered a 2-1 lead they had at half-time. Vietnam's next game is a tough one as well. It's against tournament favourites Iran on Saturday. North Korea were also in action. They were soundly thumped 4-0 by Saudi Arabia. Making matters worse, a North Korean player was given a red card, as you can see there before half-time. North Korea's next game is against Qatar on Sunday. South Korean Olympic short track champion Shim Sukhee has filed a complaint against her ex-coach over alleged sexual assaults. According to the police complaint submitted in December, Shim accuses Jo Jae-bom of raping and sexually molesting her multiple times since 2014 when she was still a high school student. 22-year-old Shim says her ex-coach's abuse continued until around 2 months before the opening of the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics. Jo was handed a 10-month prison term in September for physically assaulting Shim and 3 other skaters. BTS made a huge splash in the global music scene in 2018, breaking record after record and embarking on a sold-out world tour. The band's merchandise has been flying off the shelves as well, as you can imagine. According to our Jongun, fans are counting the hours until the next big items hit store shelves, namely BTS dolls. They are about to be released.
Fans of K-pop mega band BTS will be able to see their idols in doll form starting this summer. American toymaker Mattel, who also manufactured Barbie doll, made the announcement at the Hong Kong Toys and Games Fair on January 6th. It's part of a comprehensive worldwide licensing agreement with the band label Beacon Entertainment, under which Mattel will create dolls, collectible figures, games, and other merchandise. The dolls will be based on BTS Idol music video, which reached more than 300 million YouTube views. After the news, Mattel's Twitter account saw 25,000 new followers and the company's shares jumped almost 8% on Monday, the day after the partnership with the K-pop sensations was announced. Jongun, Arirang News.
Good morning. Upper regions are dealing with bone-chilling temperatures, while southern provinces are also having a cold morning today. And if you live in one of the big cities, tall buildings can make the wind feel even colder and stronger, so be sure to bundle up tighter. I mean, you will feel that colder air when you step outside. Afternoon highs will also be a couple notches lower than yesterday, staying in the negative territory all day for here in the capital. But thankfully, this cold snap will be short-lived. Temperatures will rebound to above seasonal norms tomorrow afternoon. Then, readings will remain relatively mild for the next few days. A patch of dry weather continues, with dry weather alerts in place for nearly a month now across much of the country. So be sure to drink plenty of water and apply a good amount of moisturizer. Daily highs will be similar to a tad lower than yesterday, so only getting up to -1 degree Celsius. Daegu and Gyeongju topping out at 4 and 6 degrees respectively. And mostly sunny skies with decent air will dominate. That's Korea for you, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
Looks like a lot of fun if you're brave enough to do it. Anyway, well, that's where we're going to leave it for now. Do stay tuned to us here on Arirang TV. Plenty more coming up, including our next newscast at noon Korea time with our very own Lee Ji-yoon. So until then, goodbye.
I'm a professional chef specialized in Korean food, hanchi. I've been cooking for 12 years. Today, I'm cooking samgyeopsal, Korean pork belly. Samgyeopsal is Korean soul food, fatty, chewy, perfect for barbecue. And we need lots and lots of vegetables. For the sauces, just the Korean simple condiments. Don't marinate the meat. Just bring them straight to the grill. You've got to keep the juice intact. Wrap the crispy samgyeopsal with veggies, spicy sauces, and just I don't want to waste any pork fat left on the grill. Simple pork fried rice with a hint of